just a deeper connection into the feminine, and where I'm led to unexpectedly becomes the mother wound. And as I have felt into the mother wound in the past, I have always been shocked to feel on the surface that there's nothing that really called to me directly for the mother wound. There really were no strong emotions or triggers that I connected to the mother wound. What I have noticed, and I've been noticing for some time, and I've mentioned several times in my previous podcasts, is that I haven't had a connection with the feminine tribe, and I've been really desiring to explore that, to call that in, to explore that, to call that in, to connect to that, and to feel into the blockages and resistance that I have to that. And to the blockages and resistance that I feel in connecting on a more intimate level with the feminine friends that I do have and exploring what that looks like. And so that is what I was exploring on this thread. And you'll have to excuse the incredibly congested sniffling, particularly at the beginning. These were it turned out to be some of the most potent and vulnerable layers that I've shifted through. It just touched a space that was so, so deep in me, that had been so effectively shut down and rationalized, that I literally never gave myself the chance to experience the emotion behind it. And so, there was a lot of emotion moving through with this. I hope you enjoy journeying with me through these layers. And please feel free to leave comments or feedback if this is something that resonates with you, if this is something that touches you, that touches at something inside of you that you've experienced similar, or that touches something that lets you know that there's something inside of you asking for this sort of attention as well.
As I was laying in here in bed this morning, some layers started to move through around my connection to the feminine. I've been exploring these threads of my connection to the feminine for some time. And recently I had started feeling a call of the feminine within me wanting to unleash. And this morning, I felt called to invite in my best friend's energy and to just imagine staring into her eyes, feeling her soul expression, feeling her in the flesh and the struggles and the passions and the love. These connections, I've never connected to a friend in this way. This is how this is how the realization started. The tip of the iceberg. I've never connected to a friend this way, and so I've been craving this intimacy with the feminine. And whenever I would say intimacy before, it would just automatically go to sexual. And so I didn't know how to navigate this desire that I had to have this emotional and energetic intimacy with the feminine. It felt so awkward. And so to lean into that, I brought my best friend into my awareness to stare into her eyes. And when I wanted to run away energetically, I stayed. And I held her. And I explored her. Just with my energy, just staring into her eyes. And then I spent some time just holding her and stroking her hair and just receiving. It felt really difficult for me to hold a woman and just receive her. Just hold her. Just open to her and all that she's feeling. And even now, I'm having more realizations about just hold me and all that I'm feeling. I've never had a man do that for me. I know so many of us have experienced the same thing. And then, I switched it and I allowed myself to energetically be held, imagined myself being physically held by my best friend, and just allowing myself to be nourished by her. And this was difficult to sit with, to lean into, to open to receiving that judgment and that love and that care. And then I felt called to explore this same thing with a dear, beautiful womb sister. So I stared into her eyes and I felt into all that I feel in her soul and all that I know of her experience and her struggles. And I just held her there. witnessed, received, and allowed myself to be witnessed and received. Just staring into her eyes. And the interesting thing is, it was a different experience with each of these women. I felt such different things in them that were so beautiful. And being received by them was a different experience, each one of them, just based on the magic gifts and energy that they hold. It's like exploring and being received by different colors of the rainbow, just, or by different goddesses with these incredible and so unique aspects and gifts. And then I held this sister, and I just received her, stroked her hair, and then allowed myself to be held. This is so foreign to me. I've never experienced this with a friend, with a woman friend, ever in my life. You know, my best friends growing up, you know, we spent so much time together and we were really close. We cried together, and, you know, sometimes, maybe once or twice. I think I remember more than us being scared and kind of cuddling next to each other because we were scared in the middle of the night. But I never had this deep, intimate connection with a feminine friend. My sister, I did. My sister and I have held each other and cried together, and I'm so thankful and just so deeply appreciative for the feminine presence that she offered in my life. So I noticed as I was holding this space for my friends that the really uncomfortable space was doing this with my mom. It was kind of like I was circling around coming to this. And for those of you who've listened to my other layers, definitely, you know, I've been exploring, I've been peeling away at the edges of the resistance that I've felt in this relationship. And so I connected to my mother, and I stared into her eyes, and I felt the walls start to melt. And I saw her for her soul, for her gifts, for her beauty, for the struggles in her life, for the wounds that she carries. And then I realized in this moment I got a little niggling and a remembrance of my firstborn staring up into my eyes, this soul piercing, pure gaze into my soul, and I couldn't receive it. And so the memory of that came to me at this time, but I stayed with my mom to explore that. And so I gazed into her eyes, and then I allowed myself to be held by her. And, this is the first time I've ever actually held layers in this way, connecting to people outside of me and observing what arises in my body as I do that. It's always been internal. And as I allowed myself to be held by my mother, my awareness shot back to myself as an infant and a young child. I realized that when I was 2 years old, beyond any, disconnect that there might have been because of her own wounds with her mother and her inability to connect at that time, beyond any disconnect that naturally would have been there. When her and my father divorced, she gave him custody of us. And, my father obviously was abusive. She did not know this. She did not knowingly give us to a man who was abusive to us. In her mind, she wasn't capable. The relationship that she had with her mom, she had no model for this. She did not feel emotionally fit to do this. She thought that my dad would be more capable because of her own wounds. So she did what she thought was best. But I realized that a part of me really was disconnected from her at that time. And it was really, there was this wall that came up. Because in that space that I moved into, I immediately had no protection. I had to protect myself. And all these walls came up everywhere. And I lived my entire childhood with these walls up, unable to receive love that was around me. I remember my mom, moving my hair out of my face or stroking my cheek, and I would resist it. I would want to pull away. And so I allowed myself to mourn a childhood where I was so closed off from this love. And I allowed myself to be held by my mother. And then I held my mother. And the interesting thing is, there was this, as I held her, there was this sort of wall still. There was this resistance. And as I felt into it, I realized it actually wasn't my resistance. It was hers. It was her walls and wounds and inability to fully receive because of her own wounds. And so I just opened to receive all of her exactly as she is, with all of the wounds and tensions that are and tensions that are preventing the flow and receptivity of this full flow of love. I just received her and I held her. And I loved her just exactly as she is. And then I realized that, as her and I have been exploring some of these layers together recently, her and I have found that we have this incredible psychic connection. And I realized that mother-daughter bond, that's something that mother-child bond is something that is so magical and otherworldly. And I realized we do have that. And I also can't wait to talk to her in the morning, or when I wake up, or when the sun comes up, because I know that she's having some kind of experience from this. She's exploring these layers with me as well. And every time I have a really powerful experience, she experiences something. And these are the most vulnerable, the most powerful layers that I've moved through yet. So I just held her there. I just received her. And feels called to as a mother, for the protection that she feels, for the love that she wants to show, for the connection that she is capable of and does express, and for the ocean of desire for more deeper connection that is just blocked because of these unresolved tensions with her own mother. And then I turned to my children. And I imagined myself holding my firstborn and receiving her and opening to receive that gaze. This angelic, pure, soul-piercing gaze that saw me for everything. And my firstborn is the one who, she reflects all of my growth to me. She sees and embodies every one of my most painful layers and reflects them back to me. She has, as I held her here and I received her, I felt so incredibly blessed for this gift of reflecting all of these layers to me for growth. She has taught me so much. I have grown and become a completely different person because of her. It was her words to me, and the reflection that I saw of myself in her. That when it was the feminine in her that initiated me from the very beginning. Such a perfect, shining example of one of the ways that the feminine inspires, the ways that the feminine inspires action from a pure place of expression, of vulnerability. And then I thought of my second daughter, who has always in everything I wish to step into. She's playful and silly and just soft and open to love. And so she shows me inspiration in a totally different way. These two little goddesses with their perfect reflection of me, their perfect reflection of these different parts of me, of my journey. They couldn't be more perfect. And then I journeyed with these layers of myself as a mother, and this thread of truth that I held in my body, this belief that I held in my body, this fear that I held that would niggle at me. And it wasn't anxious, it wasn't overpowering, but it would niggle at me. And was reflected to me by my ex-husband. This and was reflected to me by my ex-husband. This feeling that because I feel overwhelmed sometimes as a single mother, because I feel overwhelmed, because I desire a break and I enjoy having my own time for self-care, for self-exploration, that somehow I'm a bad mother. And that that I might somehow, someday, some way give up custody of my children. This was such a weird thread to feel in my body because, I mean, it's not something I would ever do, but that fear was there because of the wound. I never realized that fear was there because of the wound that I carried from my mother's fear. and her choice to give us up, her fear that she couldn't do it. And as I explored that, as I felt in, I remembered that when I was thinking about college and what I might want to go and do, if I could do and be anything in the world, what would I do? What would I be? The only thing that I've ever wanted to be was the best wife and mother that I could possibly be. And there was a part of me that felt like I had failed at that because my marriage had no bond. Because I was struggling as a mother with all of my wounds. Because I was overwhelmed. And what I realized is that in order for me to be the best partner and mother that I can possibly be, I have to find and nourish the best version of me. And that it is so necessary and so normal and so healthy for me to deeply desire and crave this kind of nourishment for myself. And I realized and felt very deeply for the first time that I am a good mother. Because there was always some doubt. And I allowed myself to recognize and feel the gifts that I have opened myself to receive from my children. The growth that I have allowed to happen as a catalyst from my children. The ways that I have allowed them to inspire me. And it also came to me that, when I was religious, there was always this idea that children were the greatest gift, and the, belief that, we were just like, oh, well, it's because they can get us into heaven. They can pray for us. We have to raise them right. We better make sure that they're pious because they're our ticket to heaven. Jesus, grow as humans. They are our greatest gift because they are the most perfect reflection of the divine feminine initiatrix. They are our salvation because they bring us back to our core soul expression if we can let down our pride, if we are willing to stumble and explore and admit that we don't fucking know how to do this, and to let them teach us how. Being a parent isn't about having the answers, it's about letting them teach us how. It's about holding them and supporting them and loving them and receiving them. And this is one of the things that I've been exploring and really, really seeing is, there was a time. It's about holding them and supporting them and loving them and receiving them. And this is one of the things that I've been exploring and really, really seeing is, there was a time. We all understand that, one of the things that women do that's not healthy, that we've been encouraged to do, is to pour all of ourselves into our children and into our marriages and all of these things, to just pour ourselves into it. I remember when my children were babies, pouring out my energy, feeling like I needed to pour my love into them, feeling called to pour my love into them. And I've done the same thing in relationships where I felt called to pour my love and penetrate with my love, penetrate with my thoughts and desires. But it was always so much effort. And what I've realized, what I've been feeling into as I've been connecting more into my feminine and opening more and receiving more, is that it is always the receptivity of the feminine that has us feel her love. I don't need love poured into me when I hug a woman. When I hug a woman, I feel the deepest and most soul-stirring connection when she is open to receive. When I feel that I just melt into her. And when I would hug women prior to this, there was a wall. I couldn't receive them. As women, it is not our job to pour ourselves into anything. It's our job to practice opening and receiving and leaning into those places where we feel those walls and exploring them and gently loving them layer by layer until they're ready to melt away. Gently allowing our hearts to crack open again and again and again to receive. Did not escape me in this process that it is this process that opens us to receive abundance in all of its forms. And it was this closure, it has been this closure, no doubt, this tension, this wall, this armor that has prevented a lot of the flow of abundance in my life. I've been exploring with some of these amazing, beautiful sisters that I have in my tribe who have created these beautiful offerings. They felt called our root and sacral chakras into our divine feminine crown and throne, this beautiful power center of the feminine. And I knew it was going to blow things wide open. And I'm only 2 weeks in. It's got 4 more weeks. And there's so many women right now. You know, I recorded that previous podcast holding space for some of these layers. And of course, that has come up just again and again as so relevant right now. So many sisters holding space, weaving with reconnecting to the feminine. But you know, I want to make it so clear that this journey of the women reconnecting to the feminine is its own unique journey. Just like the masculine reconnecting to the masculine is its own unique journey. But I want to make it so abundantly clear that these wounds and this process is a process, the reconnecting to the feminine is a process of our masculine within us reconnecting to the feminine. Of learning how to protect and honor ourselves so that we feel safe to open. Yes, we are opening and receiving as our feminine. Yes, we are opening and receiving as our feminine, but we must be able to cultivate a sense of safety to open to that vulnerability. And that safety and support from within comes from our own inner masculine. And so for men, this process is so similar. Connecting to your own inner feminine, learning how to support and nourish your own inner feminine so that you can open to receive love. It's like a breath. You cannot only penetrate. You cannot only exhale. And particularly if these layers of your own connection with your mother and your partner and your sisters has not been healed, has not been explored, if your connection with your own inner feminine has not been nourished, supported, loved, protected, honored, you won't be able to connect to your partner. This journey of being able to open to receive the feminine, it's the journey of being able to open and receive as the feminine that exists within all of us, right? And so this is a really vulnerable space for men because it is the lesser part of them. And it has been so shut down. And so it's interesting because, for women to open to receive this, it's like our entire being has to open. Oh, it's vulnerable. It's huge. It's our entire being opening to receive. It's also why we're such powerful manifestors. It's also why the feminine is such a powerful creature, because that receptivity is magnetism, and it's our entire being. And it's our entire being. That feminine is consciousness altering connection to divine wisdom beyond space and time, and it's our being. For the masculine, as women, we have to fight past the part of our masculine that has decided to shut us down, to protect us from being hurt, right? And that part of our masculine is small, but it's so overpowering. For a man, he has been encouraged to keep that shut down, locked away, that tiny part of the feminine that exists within him, to protect it to the point of containing it. Protection to get to that dark little yang magnetism, that little black hole within him that opens to receive love and abundance. Oof. It's hard to get to, and it's scary. And I can't even tell you how incredibly blessed I have felt over the past weekend, because Ooh, the series that I've started doing, the lust I have felt over the past weekend. Because, ooh, the series that I've started doing, I have been stirring this cauldron and shit has been fucking intense, let me tell you. To get to these layers that have been so vulnerable, so powerful, there was a lot of intense fucking shit that happened in my life to throw all of this in my face over the weekend. But do you know it only took a weekend, right? It took one weekend. I was able to recognize, honor, hold space with, invite in these situations, my responses to them, the sensations in my body, the chaos that it brought into my body and into my energetic and emotional world. I was able to allow my body to guide this process and to support this process so efficiently that it blew my own mind. Because of the tools and skills that I've cultivated. These skills, my sole purpose and expression to be able to share with others. It's my entire reason for being, to support others along their journey, to empower them to be able to make these powerful fucking shifts, to move through these layers so fucking efficiently, to bring the masculine and the feminine within together, working in harmony, to bring us back to our core truths so that we can find our gifts, so that we can express those gifts out in the world and support one another in our own unique, beautiful ways. This, allowing others to be able to feel what I feel, to move through these things as efficiently and powerfully as I've been able to be able to cultivate that with other human beings is so fucking powerful. It's my entire reason for being. And as my journey continues, as I continue to explore new chapters in my life, have new revelations in my life, that's what I'm here to share. As I acquire new skills to share, as I acquire new skills, new depths of clarity, that's what I'm here to share. Yeah, that's my purpose. Thank you so much for anyone who has listened to these podcasts, who's held me in these layers, who's witnessed my entire soul bearing expression. And I don't, sharing these layers is is the most vulnerable thing that a person can do. other than receiving somebody else in theirs. And to be received in these layers means the world to me. But I do it because I know I'm not the only one. And because I know that there are people out there who benefit from this. And so this is my giving back. This is the ways, this is one of the ways that I out to touch others, to support others, to let them know that they are not alone, to let them know that what they are experiencing is not theirs alone to bear, and to let them know that it can be done. And whatever layers you might be bearing, whatever layers you might be struggling with, it's not more than you can handle. It can never be more than you can handle because it's your soul. You are the only one that is equipped to handle your unique struggles. There is no one else. There's no one else more suited to it. There's no one else that could do it better. There's no one else that can give you answers. You are the expert. You hold all of the answers. You are the only one. As scary as it feels, as difficult as it feels, as unknown, as much as you have no idea how the fuck it's supposed to happen, you don't have to do it alone. There is always somebody out there that has a light to shine. And so even if my methods, my modalities are not ones that resonate, there is somebody out there who has a light to shine for you that does resonate. And as more and more of us are digging into that authentic soul expression, that authentic shining of that light, there is no competition between us as supporters in this realm, because it's our own unique flavor. It's our own unique frequency based on our unique soul expression. And so if mine doesn't resonate, I promise you there's someone out there that does. Because for every soul that is craving and yearning, there's another soul that's being called into action. And so I'm here for those souls that resonate with the actions and the lights that I'm shining. And I am just so incredibly deeply appreciative for the weaving of this web, for the growth of these people who are shining their light, supporting others, lending them a hand up into their own power. It's so incredibly fucking beautiful to be a part of.